Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It's Tuesday, July 9th. This is the work session of the County Commissioners. And up first, we have what's entitled a funding request for EPIC. Michael Lowe is here. Come on down, Michael, come have a seat and let's talk about this.
It's good to see you all again.
Again, yeah.
It's been a long time, actually.
I think it's been 2 years since we first met.
It's possible.
I think I presented last year officially, but we've been talking about it for
Yeah.
about 2 years.
Right, well, thanks for coming in. We just had a little technical issue. I can't upload your documents, but just please begin and we'll
Sure.
catch up.
Well, I think
Oh, do you need to use your screen for anything? Is there-
I can use, I've got my computer here, so this will,
Got it. I
This'll
mean,
be-
do we, is there
But I
a
mean, do we wanna put
presentation
it
you
up
wanna
on
present
our-
anything?
sure, is that
Yeah,
possible?
you'll just need to join Zoom from your laptop.
Oh, okay.
It's a nice packet. You guys can't upload it?
I can't get it to,
I use it from the county website and it's not functioning.
It's
Just
not
go
working.
to the,
They can't get it open.
I went to the county website and opened it that way.
how recently?
Is there?
Last night, they just
I didn't
can't do
go to
it.
the clerk.
They can't do it now.
Maybe. So if you go to a packet that should come through, might just be easier.
Oh, my goodness. I did it yesterday, so.
I just
guess
don't
got
download
lucky.
it. Usually I just look at it in real time.
That's really weird.
Real time has its.
Well, maybe we'll have it.
I
on tape.
love technology, don't I, John Peacock?
Luckily, I'm just getting worse at it. So at some point,
Because your
I'll
children
become-
are moving out
I'll
of the
be
house.
totally
I
analog.
mean, I read everything ahead of time, so it's not.
Right.
You can actually just click on the live.
But it needs to work tonight because I did not read the packet for tomorrow.
Oh,
Yeah,
those need to work
it's gotta work tonight.
Yeah, so you'll get there.
Though I should be able to
Scroll
open
down.
it from my home
Well,
computer.
it's cool that.
Can't open it from the building, but you can open it from home.
I know my home. I know my Mac at home
Click on
has
it.
PDF on it.
Yep.
That works.
Just the link itself.
I need to do
I used to have all that stuff and it all worked, and
Password, right?
now it doesn't.
You maybe will.
And I've decided not to. I've lost Photoshop, I've lost all this editing stuff. It's like,
yeah.
I'm not gonna pay for
So
this
anyway, you
anymore.
leave on Saturday for a month.
Flying on
No, I
Saturday, yep.
enjoyed illustrating.
When will you get to see that baby?
Yeah, I just don't wanna,
Sunday?
not use it enough to
It'll
justify
probably
paying
be
for it.
Monday or Tuesday. We'll be in Anchorage, Molly and I will be in
Separate screen
Anchorage
and see
visiting
that
her
still, so
brother
you don't
and
have to memorize it.
all the relatives.
And then you-
I got to see all the relatives in May when I was there for the
But then
graduation.
you get to see the baby.
And we have our nephew has a baby who's a little bit younger, but it's fun seeing them
It's fun, yeah,
work
seeing
together.
them together. I love it when the cousins get together.
You're gonna be gone for a month? Wow.
Click join.
But
So
you're
we'll be
you're
up-
zooming in though.
We'll be up in McCarthy for 2.5 weeks doing construction
Oh,
project.
nice. It didn't. So I'm going to promote you to a panelist.
That's why we wanted to go right now.
So it's not snowing and cold.
Bring up my PowerPoint.
If you'll have the bears.
And we'll see how the mosquitoes are doing, but the brown bears have been hanging out around there this time. It's the first time
And I'm just
we've
going to
had
turn. Oh, you're
brown
right,
bear
it's off.
issues, so.
Wow.
And
Mosquitoes, yeah.
Those
Mosquitoes, I'll
brown
be
bears.
curious if the mosquitoes still like me with my
And,
blood
yeah,
sugar
now you have
being
the option
lower.
to
Maybe
share
they
Oh,
won't
yeah,
like me.
maybe they won't like you so
I think
much.
they're still gonna like you.
Drink more vinegar.
Do you have a
Share?
head net?
Yeah,
I did read something about that.
I don't like wearing a head net, but I will if it's,
When you're sweet, the
Vinegar?
mosquitoes like you more?
Like, yeah,
Blood sugar?
your metabolism
Let's
affects.
see there.
They don't like garlic. So if you eat a lot of garlic, except my daughter eats a lot of garlic, she doesn't eat a lot of sweets and they love her.
Works for some people.
we put a mosquito net around the bed, so
Yeah.
at nighttime we don't have to get bit by them.
Yeah. Willow is a magnet. Willow, we go someplace, none of us would get bit and she would be covered.
And he gets like welts.
Yeah.
And they turn off.
Some,
All right, are we
some
ready here?
kids.
Yeah, I think we're.
All right,
There
okay,
it
we're
is.
back. We're off and running.
For drink.
Okay, welcome, Michael. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Now that you live down Valley, it's easier.
Let's see.
All right, where did it go? It was up there.
You had it.
You gotta remember to pick up my dog today.
I was excited to see
I'm taking
Carew
him
on
to
your
Daddy-
list,
Daddy
Mike. I didn't
daycare.
know that you were working with Carew.
Yeah.
And my son Rio, Sierra's brother, he was project manager at Carew.
Oh, nice. Yeah. That's I'm not sure why it's not coming up. Here we go.
Are you just trying to present?
Yeah. There we go. Okay, here we go. Well, first
Hi.
and foremost, hi, and thanks again for making time to hear this, and thank you for actually creating an avenue to hear this, because I know last time I came it was challenging because you had to make some decisions about a certain part of the budget being set aside to support these sort of causes. So I just want to say thanks. I know Habitat's come before you. I think you're going to hear another great presentation. So I think you can't lose. Everybody that's on the docket is worthy of support.
Well, thank you. Part of my ambition with all this is to make sure that you all get a good platform and a public airing, and so the community really knows
Yeah.
what you're up to. It's help promoting all these things too. So that's part of our goal as well.
Yeah. Well, I think just to recap what I had shared before, but just to kind of catch you up on where things are at, is Epic Pathways is just a very innovative way to give students who aren't college bound access to careers, specifically local careers. So we recognized a unique opportunity 3 years ago with the labor shortage to try to identify those kids in local high schools who weren't college bound and try to create meaningful experiences for them, especially in their senior year, where they could work at a local shop and hopefully, if they were successful, be offered a job. And 3 years later, I'm excited to announce that we've had over 100 kids who've gone through this, I guess, upper level program. And here's some of the programs here. We got auto, construction, agriculture, outdoor ed. That's probably the most robust programs we have. The experiential learning is not specifically housed under an industry partner. It's more working with industry professionals to help students develop basic skills so they could then go on. Like the tiny home construction project, which we have a house in Aspen, house at Bridges, house at Rifle, and we will be launching a house in DeBeck here shortly. This has been a great gateway to more meaningful construction jobs. I think our construction partners feel like if the students have a little bit more robust experience working with integrating systems, not just a very specific system, they're more likely to get hired. So we've had about a dozen students who've graduated from the tiny homes construction project and have landed great jobs at Carew, Gallegos, Structural Associates, and a few others. But I had mentioned that at least for the seniors, after 3 years, we started with 12 kids landing jobs. We then went to 37 kids who landed jobs. As of now, kids who graduated this last year, 54 kids, and this is the first year we have at least one kid from all 10 high schools from Aspen to DeBeck.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so I think from 12 to 37 to 54, it's very exciting. I think probably the piece I'm most proud of is at least, I mean, we're only 2 months into this next wave, but we've had 85% job retention. So those kids are staying the course. And I think one of the happy accidents we've discovered is it's less about how great the program is, less about what we're doing, and just more about the simple fact that these kids who are not college bound have access to affordable housing. So they can stay with mom and dad, grandma, grandpa, whoever is their guardian. And I think from their parents' perspective or guardian's perspective, they're ecstatic that little Johnny or Sally is not working at McDonald's, that they're actually working at Toyota, and happy to provide that child with continued housing. And we've also, at least our early data from our industry partners, it's like those hires, even if they had more training from outside the area, especially in auto, where Lincoln Tech graduates often are recruited by Toyota, Honda, some of the local dealerships, those kids last 3 to 6 months because they can't afford to live here. So anyways, exciting to say that of the 100 and plus kids, that 85% of those kids are still working, and those are 85 jobs that were needed in our community, and I think we feel confident that those kids will stay the course. And I think they're getting that internal training, and what we're discovering is that many of our industry partners, they kind of want to do their own training. Certainly they want those kids to show up with a basic level of skills, and they want those soft skills, the responsibility, and just being able to show up on time, some basic understanding of computer systems. And I think that's where we've really sort of risen to a place where we've identified exactly what those students need, both before leaving high school as well as after, and we provide them with what we call kind of a life soft skill boot camp, where the kids learn everything from how to write a resume to practicing interviews to just how to be a good employee. So we've gotten great feedback from industry partners, and our whoops.
That was kind of cool.
Yeah. Anyways,
I wanted to ask you, while
Yeah.
you're on it, regarding the construction trades. I'm on the core board, on the core board from here, and I think core might be interested in talking to you if you haven't already reached out to them. One of the biggest concerns we hear is that the current workforce isn't up to speed enough on things like heat pumps or modern, decarbonization, electrification efforts. And so training along those lines would be really interesting to them, and there might even be grant possibilities or scholarship possibilities. I'm going out on a limb, but we talk about that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And if your construction training involves what's coming rather than how to do it, what's happening now, just that often we hear that people know how to install a gas water boiler, but they don't know how to install the heat pump water heater. And that's causing some issues, and it's like, this is where the industry's going. So I just wanted to plant that seed, but it might be worthwhile to have a chat with them, or
Yeah.
if your people aren't already doing it.
We did. You had mentioned that last time, and after you gave me that advice, I reached out to them, and we have been exploring some solar panel installation programs. There's one actually in Grand Junction that already exists. We've got 2 students that are participating in it this summer.
Okay.
That's sort of our first, our early entry. There's also a solar installation company out of Carbondale called Sunshine.
Sure, SunSense?
Sunsense, sorry, yeah. Feinsinger, Mark Feinsinger, we've been chatting with him about getting students who graduate from this program in Grand Junction into some sort of internship, paid internship there.
Great.
But it's still very much in the early phases. I would say the other thing is, you're probably aware that electricians are in high demand. There's all these new ordinances that are going to be required, and so there's just been a massive push to try to
Right.
identify and train electricians.
Yeah.
And even though
HVAC.
it's a much higher bar, we have partnered with WEIC out of Glenwood Springs. I don't know if you're familiar with that nonprofit. They specifically provide early stage training for potential electricians and then pair them with professionals. And we've had 27 kids go through that program.
Oh, wow.
That's
great.
And we have 9 kids that have gone on to additional training. Now, none of those kids, because it's a 3-year internship, so none of those kids have actually graduated, but all of them are getting paid. And I think $54,000 was the starting with the first year as they're training and learning, they're getting paid $54,000. So we feel like that's a good start, and I know that with what they're learning, it's a lot of this new stuff.
Right, sure.
Um,
That's really great to hear.
Yeah, so
Thanks.
I appreciate the heads up last time, and I think we're taking some baby steps in that direction, and I think the more we learn about other opportunities, but I'll continue to communicate with CORE and see what's out there.
Okay, great, thanks.
I think I wanted to mention that, there's a lot of focus on this upper level, what happens during their senior year, but we're now kind of walking, programming all the way back to middle school. We just received a grant, an Opportunity Now grant from the state. So we're now going to be in middle schools next year, providing, just like, we're trying to provide a comprehensive collection of industry professionals who come in and sort of talk about the job and maybe even provide job shadowing opportunities. The job shadowing can be tricky because we're talking about a lot of kids that come to a job site, and we're asking a lot of industry professionals to try to create a safe space in a day and try to help those students learn as much as they can. So we're not sure what that model looks like, but I think we're at least going to be in middle schools helping students understand what are the options, and hopefully they'll start to wrap their mind around, I might want to do that.
I just want to interject again, but that's really great. I'm so excited about hearing about that.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, it didn't happen in middle school. Maybe it did, I just don't remember. But the high school experience is where somebody came in and talked to us about their careers was life-changing for me. And
Career
I think
day.
What's that?
Career day.
It happens,
Well, it
it's been
wasn't- it
happening
Career
for
day.
years.
Well, but back in we didn't really have career day back then, that I recall. But we had an individual would come in and talk about a physicist, like George Stranahan would come in and talk about physicists, or Nick DeWolf would come in and talk about inventing or
Yeah.
something. And I remember how important that was when people come in and do that. So
Yeah.
I think it's really affects young people's lives. So
Yeah.
I have a question about, I'm sorry, go
I
ahead,
was
Kelly.
just gonna say, I went to a career day when I first started in this job and sat at there were stations.
And you were
I
a
sat at
commissioner?
the government station and very few people came to visit me.
yeah. The last refuge of
There
scoundrels.
there aren't a lot of 18-year-olds at the table, that's for
Yeah.
sure. I have a question about your ask.
Yeah.
So is it a one-time ask? I think we were a little confused about that, because I know that Garfield committed annually, but.
Yeah.
Turn your mic on.
Yeah, Fritz.
I think, it's, our relationship with Garfield County is that every year we have to come back and sort of prove that what we're doing is good and it's growing. And certainly if there's an opportunity to come back here every year and share our story and continue to ask for support, that would be great. But I will honor whatever's most comfortable for you. I know you've got a lot of organizations that have needs. I think this year we have what it comes down to is we have to provide a match every year. So last year we kind of got to the match thanks to some last minute private donations. We have about 320,000 of the 500,000 is been an annual commitment. We still have to go back, and like Slifer Smith and Frampton is committed to $20,000 a year for the next 5 years. Alpine Bank, it's $10,000 a year for the next 5 years. So there's a lot of little ones like that. Garfield County is a bit of an anomaly. They're now up to $120,000 a year, but we're kind of chasing down the other 180,000 every year. So I think my ask today is to help us kind of close that gap. I mean, I have till Thanksgiving essentially to raise that additional 180.
Well, I
but-
really hope we don't have to wait that long this time.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, Greg, I think Kelly.
yeah.
Go ahead, Kelly.
No, I'm good. Patty?
Well, we have, correct me if I'm wrong, looking at John Peacock, we're supposed to be having like a policy discussion on how we're gonna handle all these requests that are coming outside of our grant program.
Right.
I don't know if you qualify for the Healthy Communities grants. That's an avenue which we fund issues like this. But we have a lot of asks for capital expenditures that we really haven't had a discussion on. It's my
Yeah, we
unders-
set up a $200,000 fund.
I'm just
for
gonna ask about
capital.
that.
Okay.
But it's my understanding from Francie that we have set aside 200,000, John? Can you help me with this?
Yeah, that's correct. So we set aside $200,000 in this year's budget around capital requests. Operating requests have typically gone to the Healthy Community Fund and are vetted through the grant review committee. Lindsay is trying to work with other community partners who also give community grants, like, for example, Aspen Community Foundation and such, to see if we can set up a quicker vetting process to see where there's collective impact or where we're not maybe doubling up with another entity or maybe doubling up strategically with another entity for funding that she's planning on bringing forward to you all. She's just wanted to get buy-in from the partners before it comes to this board so we understand what they'd be willing to do. This board, though, can direct the expenditure of that $200,000 however you want, or you can wait for that process to come forward.
I am grateful that we have this money set aside, but I think in an effort to be fair with all the people we're hearing from, which I really appreciate your coming back to us again, but also Greg's feelings that this is a great way to get the word out to the community of all the great efforts that are being done in our community. I really think I totally support that. But I think we need to can't just look at that piecemeal, that 200,000, because it only goes so far. So I would like to see us have some kind of a discussion sooner, much sooner than later, as to how we're gonna disperse that money. In an effort,
I
'cause
thought we
don't
were in
wanna-
the process right now of hearing from the people who have asked. Isn't
Yeah,
that where we are?
but I want some kind of a time frame because we could hear from people until January 1st of 2025. And if there's some people that have more of an emergent need to show they have this revenue.
Yeah, so I know Charlotte was setting up. Let me check with her because our intent was once we had gotten through the entities that have come forward with requests that you directed us to bring forward. And I'm sorry, I'm just not recalling right now.
It'd be
where
great if
we're
we
at
had a
in that.
plan, so we
Then
didn't
we
have
would
to have
set
another
up-
waiting process to get this money out the door.
Right, then we'll set up a work session
Perfect.
to
To
get
establish a
direction.
date.
And you can give direction in a work session since we've already appropriated the dollars. Yeah.
Okay, thanks,
Thank you.
Patty. Well, there's so many anecdotal things to share, but I think the bottom line is I think we have stumbled across probably the most efficient way that we can get kids into the workforce and fill labor shortage. It's really been absolutely remarkable how we started out like, how are we going to raise all this money to build a facility and then get the machines, and this is going to take 5 years. And we're just like, well, maybe that happens, and even if it doesn't mean we can't start training kids on site. And certainly this is not meant to disparage CMC. I love CMC. I think they're an essential resource to the community. But, they've got an auto program in Rifle. I think they've got, at least talking to our auto partners, I think they've made 5 hires from that auto program over the last 3 years, and they've made 7 hires, and 5 of the 7 have stayed. We have 17 hires in 3 years. I mean, this is a comprehensive multi-million-dollar program, which does good work, and they've got a facility with equipment, and we're just taking a different tact. And this is in no way meant to undermine that program. I think it's a valuable program. I hope it stays. But we've stumbled across what we feel is the model of the future. And I think we've got industry partners that are excited and receptive. And I think from their point of view, it's like a 3-month job interview. And because we're doing so much work on the front end, helping these kids develop these soft skills so that when they enter that internship opportunity, they're just dialed. And
Hopefully a
this year-
pre-internship.
Pre-internship.
Yeah, I think it's great. And CMC did a great program over in Leadville with restoration of Victorians. And it ran through, and they did it on site, showing people what needed to be done to restore Victorians in Leadville. And that was huge. And it kept that was when the mine had closed and Leadville really needed some employment opportunities. It was great. And who knows what the future will bring with a partnership with CMC or somebody else, who knows?
Yeah.
And that also will open the door maybe for some of these kids to also get some formal education in higher grade
Right.
levels. So I think it's a great opportunity.
Well, I'm a big fan, and I'll be pushing for it, and I hope we can get an answer to you soon.
Yeah, thank you. And we've had, so in addition, maybe just 2 other things to share. In addition to the 54 kids that landed full-time jobs, we went from 377 kids that participated in programs, and that was 10, 11, 12, to this last year it was 563 kids that participated in programs from 9 through 12.
That's great.
And then next year we're going to have 7 through 12, all 10 high schools. So
Never too soon to
that's
put those
great.
kids to work.
yeah.
Steve, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm wondering what sort of a process the students go through to pick what area they want to study in. Do they get some exposure to a whole lot of different things?
It's a great question. So 2 years ago in 10th grade, we had a career discovery strand at 2 high schools, Bridges and Yampa, because they have a little bit more flexibility. This year, working with counselors at 5 of the 10 high schools, we expanded this career discovery program. All schools have had like a college discovery program, and our conversations with them is like, hey, can we just balance this out, that you're not just showing kids how to use Naviance to figure out what colleges are out there and what they might want to do, but we're also looking at some career opportunities as well. So I think we've successfully integrated this career discovery into those programs at 5 high schools. I think we're very hopeful that will be integrated into all high schools this coming year. So.
Yeah,
And it's a personality assessment. It's like a deep dive into careers out there. There's sometimes YouTube videos that are linked so that kids are not only, reading about it, but they're kind of seeing it and hearing from professionals.
So one reason I'm asking that is our nephew, who just graduated from high school a year ago in Anchorage, they didn't have a program like this in high school, so he started out after post-high school in an apprenticeship in a sheet metal fabrication plant, and was making good money and learning a lot. But then he figured out he didn't want to do that for a living. Now he's he's been accepted to nursing school,
Yeah.
which is really, I think, would suit him from his background and other family members who are nurses and whatnot. Probably is a good choice. But if you had that kind of a screening earlier on in high school for kids to really sort of take a look at different areas they could go into and
Yeah.
make a better decision up front and save some time and
Absolutely.
some effort
Money.
that way.
Save a lot of money too.
I
Yeah.
mean, you're probably aware there's been this massive push the last decade that all kids must go to college. All kids at least deserve to have the opportunity to go to college, and that's great. But the reality is, despite millions, literally millions of dollars that has been spent just in our bucket of schools alone on college opportunities and other resources that could help kids prepare for tests and things like that, the numbers haven't changed. It's still about half the kids do not go to college or drop out in their first year. It's 52%. That's the nationwide statistic, and that statistic is pretty true here. It's not like for example, Aspen High School. They say 94% of the kids are college bound, but it actually is more like 75% actually go to college and stay in college. Meanwhile, in DeBeck and Parachute, about 50, no, it was 40. It was in the low 40 percentile for both schools go on to college, but actually less than 30% stay in college. So we've got, if you take an aggregate number across all 4 school districts and all 65 to 7,000 graduating students, and which would be about 1,800 graduating seniors, it's about 50%. 900 students this year, last year, 10 years ago, do not go to college or drop out in their first year. So if we can capture even, 10, 20% of that and help them find local jobs, we feel that's a huge win for everybody.
Those numbers are pretty close, except for the fact they don't take into consideration kids who take a gap year. They're considered didn't go to college.
Yeah.
And then they might go back. They're not tracked. And the kids that drop out and then go back to some other level of college. So
That's
but
true.
that's the best information that the school systems have to go on. It's just like saying every kid needs to have an IB diploma.
Yeah,
I want every kid to have a diploma.
right.
How many people do you have working in BoCCs?
We have 12. We have 8 that are full-time to this initiative and 4 part-time.
Great.
So 12. And a lot of that, we have, the bulk of those jobs are industry liaisons and career counselors.
That's really great. Run an innovative program.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for hearing me out, and I would be grateful for anything. We're asking for 50,000, but we're grateful for whatever you can do to support. I think from a
Thanks.
grant perspective, when they see that Picken County is supporting us in some way, shape, or form, that's helpful.
It helps. Okay.
We're hoping it helps.
We'll have a conversation about it. Not sure what the schedule is, that's what
Soon.
Patty is talking about, but soon, and
Yeah.
we'll let you know, and good luck.
Okay, super.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks,
you so
Mike.
much.
Thanks for coming up.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for your
I'm
time.
hoping local newspapers were watching this, so we can get you some good PR for the good work you're doing.
Yeah, NBC did a real nice piece on the tiny homes
Oh, great.
last year.
Excellent.
So we've got a little
Now,
national
if we could
press.
get Glenwood Springs to adopt a tiny home code, we'd really be in shape.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm gonna work on that.
Yeah, thank you. All right. take
Thanks for
care.
coming.
Bye.
Appreciate it. Okay, up next, we're a little bit behind schedule, but not much, really. Healthy River Spring grant applications.
It needs to be elevated, I guess.
One of the leases is here.
Is that on? Oh, there we go. Right.
Lisa Tasker of the leases. Somehow you're called the Lisas now.
I know. Yeah, well, we keep it very simple. It's pretty easy. Healthy Rivers
You're
program.
helping us remember names.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I know. Yeah, great. Well, I'm really excited to be here today with 2 great people who I think you all are familiar with. Lisa Tasker here with the Picken County Healthy Rivers Program. I'm here to with our last 2 grant applicants from our Healthy Rivers grant, spring grant cycle. And as you know, the Healthy Rivers Program has a spring and a fall grant cycle. And we have a total of $200,000 that we hand out that for 2024 is one of our budgetary line items for grants. And we, this year, during the spring grant cycle, we recommended the board recommended full funding for 5 of 6 grants. That was in April, that with for a total of $114,164. So we're a little over half of that amount of money, that pot of money for grants, but grants are over $15,000. We have the applicants come before the board, and we had 3 different applicants that were over $15,000 this year. We were here 2 weeks ago with our first applicant, and we're here today with the last 2. And this is just so that the board can get a brief overview from both of our applicants, and also just kind of they can answer questions and address any concerns that maybe the BoCC might have. So I'm happy to be here with Will Roush, the Executive Director of Wilderness Workshop, and Megan Dean, who's the Director of Education with the Roaring Fork Conservancy. And I'm going to go ahead and let Megan go ahead and give you a brief synopsis of what she's up to and what the funding is earmarked for. And then we'll go ahead and get over to Will. So we've got about 15 minutes for each of these guys.
Welcome,
Great.
Megan.
Thank you.
Nice to
Good
see you
be
again.
here. Good to see everybody again.
Hi.
I'm gonna be really old school and pass out my presentation, so we don't have to worry about,
Computers.
yes.
Thank you. What,
We'll
you
be-
noticed
we'll be
we
efficient.
had a problem with computers earlier?
Yeah.
No,
Oh,
not
you
at all.
didn't notice, you didn't notice that.
Well, I can include myself in that group, so
Like every time
this
we,
takes away the stress from me, because I know it's gonna work.
thank you.
Because it's paper.
This is so cool.
If we can flip pages in the right order, we'll be good.
Isn't it beautiful? Just so simple. Okay, so yes, thank you so much for your past support of our programs. We're really excited about how our programs have forged in some new directions and gone through development. I'm really excited about some of the recent developments in our programming. I just wanted to point out a couple highlights of what we've been doing and where the funding will be most spent. So generally overall, in the last year, we've taught over 6,000 students in the Valley and outside of the Valley now, and around 300 education programs. So we've been busy, and we're really pleased and excited with the results of all those classes and all those contacts. We're really trying to focus on including current water issues, including current water projects into our programming that often requires constant development and revision. But we think it's really important as things change in water very quickly, and there's a lot of things happening right now, that's reflected in our programming, especially with the high school level programs. We can really kind of dig into some of those issues and best management practices and steps for moving forward. There's a lot of things that are definitely coming to a head and a struggle in the water world, but I really, really, truly believe that the positive actions need to be highlighted and collaboration needs to be highlighted in order to solve these problems and moving forward. And I think that kids are the best way to do that. Especially in the older ages, but starting with the younger ones, creating that foundation and then spiraling up. So our programs are pre-K all the way through adult. And the curriculum's been built so that the connections are made when the students are younger. They're connections that are age appropriate and developmentally appropriate. Lots of beaver programs, otter programs, things that students can really grab onto. Well, I mean, and adults too. I mean, they're just awesome. You can't not like those little critters. But then moving into, in the middle years, more relationship developing. So our Watershed Pen Pal program has just kind of exploded. I'm so pleased with, it started as a little idea I had when I was at a conference with Aurora Water educator, Sherry Meshko, and it has grown into something that I'm pretty excited and pretty proud of. So we have 4 schools that we're working with that are pen pals between our valley and the Front Range. I'm spending time on the Front Range teaching classes. Aurora Water now is coming up and teaching classes here. Kids are developing relationships. I've been told by teachers that they're continuing those relationships and setting up times to play different video game things that I don't know what they are, but they love them. So connecting, and our goal is to connect them personally, but also on water issues. So all of our programming is based around conservation, understanding the importance of high water quality, and a strong focus for me is elaborating and having kids experience what all depends on our headwaters and on our water systems. So more than just the human need, but also the environmental need. A lot of times that's left out in water conversations. Everything's pipes and buckets. And I really like to push those experiences that the students grow into this understanding that it's a whole system that includes the environment and includes all of the organisms that depend on it. Just last week or the week before, it's a little blurry because we've been pretty busy. We just had launched our first summer program where we actually brought families up from Aurora. We had 6 families come up, and through a partnership grant with the CWCB, we were able to provide housing and transport for them. So it was a free program so that no one would be limited. We did an application process, and it was just amazing. The kids came up. We went in vans up to the headwaters of the Roaring Fork, or the Frying Pan headwaters. The kids played in the rivers. We took them rafting. We studied macroinvertebrates, and they started making all the connections. And the feedback that I received, and just even some of the comments that the kids said, was honestly like somewhat humbling to me, because seeing them experience those things for the first time and seeing them understand where the water in their faucet comes from, when before that wasn't at all an understanding, and the systems that depend on that water, was pretty powerful. We connected them with students in Basalt that they were in the program with. So Basalt students joined the Aurora students, and by the end of 3 days, they were like such good friends and playing together and having all these experiences. So that's kind of where a lot of my innovative focus has been with some of the funding, and we're going to continue to do that into the future. I think if you look at I included in the end of the packet, and I won't read it, I'll let you read that on your own, but just some feedback from students, journal entries they all wrote and journaled. I crafted some questions to help them make those connections, and they also took their own photographs, and we'll be using those journal entries and photographs for a presentation that we'll be delivering to the water managers in the city, for the city of Aurora. And then next year, we're hoping to get into the advisory committee for the city council of Aurora. The photos and the journals themselves will be put into a huge display. It's going to be like 8 feet, like almost a standing wall of canvas that we're working on having travel on the Front Range to really be able to utilize the experience that these families had and these kids had, and have them be able to share that out with their community, with the goal that people on both sides of the divide are learning where their water's coming from, and also recognizing that we really have to work together in order to be able to operate within the hydraulic system that we have.
Great, that's fantastic, thank you. You mentioned short film here. I got my attention. I remember we talked about that
Yeah.
like a couple of years ago or whenever.
Yeah.
Is that part of the presentation to the water managers in the city, or what's the?
Eventually, yes. So that'll be filmed in stages over the next 2 years to create that story, essentially. And the second presentation, so year 2, is when we'll present that. But we're hoping that that gets distributed to a much wider audience.
And you're off to a start on that?
Yes,
Fantastic.
it all happened very quickly.
Glad to
but
hear it. Okay.
That was such a great conversation that we had about that, and it got the wheels turning. So when I was looking for secondary funding and grant funding, I put a section in there for the video because I think it's really powerful.
And it's kind of happening. That's really gratifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I just want to fully disclose that I have a grandson who will be in 3rd grade this year, coming year, 4th grade next year at Sopris Elementary.
Oh,
and I want him to take part in this program because he spends most of his life on the water with his dad, who's a fly fishing guide. And that's his second love. I mean, you get him down to that water and you see this whole transformation of this kid into somebody who's like eager to learn it and live it. And I think this program is awesome.
You can become a water attorney and work for the
Nah, I think he'll be a fly fishing guide or a rafter.
Sounds as fun as fishing.
I think he's going to stay on his dad's side of the picture. But yeah, I think these programs are great. You know, I've been part of it for many years now, so this is huge. So
I've
thank you.
probably told everybody this before, and I definitely told Megan last time when we talked about this, is 30 years ago, I made a documentary about kids who were pen pals with an environmental theme. And there were kids at ACES in Aspen who were pen pals with kids on Lake Malawi at a nature center on Lake Malawi in Africa. And it was a really simple, low-budget, labor of love film, but the Disney Channel discovered it and took it, and off we went, off to the races. And so they showed it nationally for 5 years.
Well, if my
So I have
grandson goes
ambitions
to
Watched
for
it,
you
yes.
also.
When you
Yeah.
told me about
Did I send
that,
it to
I
you?
watched it, and we're actually using that to help guide
Oh,
some of what we're
do you know?
Well, if
doing.
my grandson
so.
gets to go to Africa, I'm going with him. I'll be the
Yes, you
chaperone.
definitely have to go with them. Yeah, well, that's really cool. So thank you. Yeah, that's
Thank you.
near and dear to me. Steve, go ahead.
I'm really curious about the kids from the Aurora schools and what they are learning and what impact that might have on them or on their families or their use of the water in Aurora.
Don't encourage them to be water
Use of
attorneys.
our water in Aurora.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. You know, what the feedback that I heard just, you know, when I was running everything and there was a lot going on and my head was kind of on a swivel. So I did have the parents do evaluations, and that was one of the many reasons why I had the kids journal. But some of the things I heard, you know, being up late at night and making all this happen, I'm like, oh, it was worth it. Because, you know, their comments were just amazing. You know, one kid's like, oh my gosh, this is so worth the 4-hour ride. And, you know, another girl was saying, she's like, this is paradise. You
Yeah,
guys live
very
in
cool.
paradise. And then, you know, the parents were talking about, oh my gosh, I had no idea that this is what it looked like, where my water came from. And then at the end of the program, I was really pushing conservation. And, you know, they were just all about, oh, we have to tell everybody, and it's so important to conserve water. And all those, you know, connections I was hoping for really came to fruition. And, you know, just even the gratitude that they showed it was really just wonderful to be around that energy.
Very cool.
Well, thanks for coming and thanks for bringing it in and congrats, I guess. What's the status of the funding? When does the Healthy Rivers, has this already been decided? This one's,
Yes,
Right.
the board unanimously approved both of these
thought it looked
requests, so,
familiar.
yep.
They just come to us so we know where the money's going.
Excellent.
Yes, exactly.
Well, that's great.
So you don't have
Going
to,
to the right place.
you don't have to approve anything, but you can, you know, make comments. You have shifted some grants before, not very many. You in particular, Greg, I can remember one in particular you added on to it, but that's a rarity.
detract
But
from it.
that is an option. So anyway, yeah.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Megan.
You're welcome.
We're going to keep moving over to Will
Yeah,
next.
and
I
Megan's
will.
got a board meeting she's got to get
Usual
to. So.
suspect.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Thanks for coming in.
Appreciate
Keep us in the loop on all this.
I will. I'll definitely send you the video.
Yeah.
And there's been quite a few news articles on it.
Oh, great.
So I can shoot those links over.
I'd love to see
That'd
that.
be great, and we'll send them over to everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, send them to me, and I'll head
Great.
them over to
Yeah, please do.
John.
There was this one in the Colorado Sun that was really well done. So.
They do a great job.
That's cool.
And then there's a great little thank you letter to everybody.
I saw that one. That's great.
Yeah, so now we've got Will, and he's here to talk about the Wild and Scenic campaign that they have been actively involved with.
Great. Yeah, so Will Roush, I'm the executive director of Wilderness Workshop. Michael Gorman, who's our campaign director and leads a lot of this work for us, unfortunately was out on vacation, but I get to work with him pretty closely, so I've got I think a pretty good handle on the work. And I'll just begin by, saying that we're really grateful for the support for several years now of the Healthy Rivers program, but not just for the financial support. Staff, in particular at the Healthy Rivers program, as well as the county, have been really integral to this effort that I'll be talking about to protect the Crystal River with a wild and scenic designation. So our grant is a request for support for our legislative advocacy and communications work to protect the Crystal River with a wild and scenic designation. my hunch is you all are relatively familiar with where that work is, but just a very brief update, or I guess kind of refresher. Picken County, along with Gunnison County, the town of Marble, and the Colorado River District, formed a collaborative group and a steering committee of about 30 or so community members, hired facilitators that went through a process that concluded in the early part of this year to essentially look at, you know, the values that people held for the Crystal River and consider, you know, different ways or alternatives to protect the river and those values. That subcommittee, or that steering committee, looked at 8 different alternatives and then recommended, you know, 3 to continue. Excitingly, one of those 3, and I guess not too surprisingly, was wild and scenic designation. The other 2 were establishing an in-stream flow water right on the Crystal above and beyond what's already there. And then the third was kind of a suite of local government protections. So things that essentially those 4 entities could do on their own. The others obviously require other actors. Congress in the case of wild and scenic, and the state in the case of an in-stream flow. So those 3 recommendations, you know, basically formed 3 subcommittees out of that larger steering group to pursue each of those. So I'll talk a little bit more about that work. But I will say that you know, this was about a year-long process that the steering committee went through. And I think was, you know, it took a while, but was really important in terms of building trust, helping educate, you know, community members across the spectrum of, you know, people who've supported this idea of protecting the Crystal with a wild and scenic for decades, as well as folks who, you know, have reservations and who've actively opposed it in the past. And so that kind of go slow to go fast mentality and an exercise of building trust, I think, sets us up really well, both for just a good community process, but also for, you know, what we ultimately need is for our senators and representatives to say, you know, I trust this process and I'm going to, you know, carry a bill on this. So those 3 subcommittees are now meeting regularly. The grant is, you know, our work in the grant is divided into legislative work, advocacy and organizing, and communications work. The bulk of that is happening on the legislative side, and specifically through that subcommittee. We're chairing it along with American Whitewater and EcoFlight, and the goal of that is to draft a proposal for a Crystal River Wild and Scenic package that's tailored to meet the specific needs of the community and the flexibility expressed by the steering committee. So without going into kind of all the different aspects of that work, you know, the work that Michael and others are doing are, you know, continuing to build that trust, bringing in experts on what wild and scenic designation looks like and can look like. So that's, you know, community members who've participated in past wild and scenic efforts, you know, folks who are expert in drafting legislation itself and how you can express a community value or concern in actual legislation. And going through some of those kind of more technical issues, things like condemnation is an issue that, you know, community members have expressed concern about. There's ways to make sure that condemnation is not part of any legislation for the Crystal, but we need to figure out how that can happen in the way that makes the most sense, and we need to help people understand, you know, that it's meaningful. So that subcommittee will develop a draft, which will then be sent back to the full steering committee for, you know, action and consideration. The only other thing I'll mention on that is that Michael's also participating in the in-stream flow subcommittee. Those 2 pieces of work are quite related because it's very likely that the ultimate legislation for wild and scenic will include an in-stream flow provision. And so we want to make sure those 2 efforts are aligned.
I might just, you know, say right now real quickly, just because Will is, you know, obviously sitting in for Michael, but so Kelly is sitting in the Wild and Scenic subcommittee I'm sitting on the Wild and Scenic Subcommittee and the Peaking In-Stream Flow Subcommittee. There were 3 subcommittees that were formed after the stakeholder process. You guys have heard about quite a bit of this, but anyway, so there's a number of folks that are sitting at the table here today that are involved with some of this ongoing. Yep.
Yeah.
And we can definitely help further, answer more questions later if there's more connected to that.
Do you want to add anything, Kelly?
Yeah.
No, I mean,
No.
you guys all heard, I think, a pretty
heard it.
detailed presentation from us
Yep.
fairly recently on the update. I would say putting together the package has really dove into what the Wild and Scenic Act does and identifying points of contention and or points of misunderstanding where the group is diving into to sort of alleviate concern and figure out points of departure and consensus. Condemnation being one, permit requirements for any kind of work in the river being another, concerning private landowners. So it's a real deep dive right now in order to propose where we reach.
Yeah, and it's a
altogether.
little tricky. The Wild and Scenic Subcommittee definitely, this is new territory for everybody involved, and I think there's some creative things that are going to have to happen going into the future, with Wilderness Workshop involved, of course.
Lisa, could you speak up just a little bit?
Oh, sorry.
Not
It's not
worry
your mic,
about
you just
this.
need to talk
Just
to
your
it.
Okay,
voice.
yeah, sorry,
Thank
my
you.
voice doesn't carry. So, I think that there's going to be some space that we're going to have to dive into, because there is a challenge with some of these subcommittees, especially the Wild and Scenic one, where some of the loudest voices, end up getting the most attention, and that's not necessarily the way things should roll, right? So there's some very interesting things, and Wilderness Workshop has some background in this, and Hattie Johnson, EcoFlight Leah Lintz is a great calming person. So it's a interesting story, and it's unfolding, and Wilderness continues to be a great participant. And I guess maybe too, I'd love to have you talk a little bit more about how you guys are kind of campaigning on the side, because I feel like there's kind of two different things going on here. One is the stakeholder process, and the other one is, an actual campaign to actually get out there and get out in front and talk about, the wonders of Wild and Scenic, and why the designation is something that Wilderness has been behind. I think there's kind of two different things happening here. Maybe you might want to speak to that a little bit, Will, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned earlier, this grant's for 3 chunks of work: the legislative work, which we've been talking about so far, and then the other 2 are the advocacy and organizing work, and then communications. So I think that's what Lisa's referencing. So alongside that, kind of more technical stakeholder work, we've been engaged in, fairly traditional kind of advocacy and organizing to show that really broad base of support for the Crystal, to make sure that folks who, aren't participating in these time-intensive processes, that their voices are heard. I think one good example of how we utilize that in the stakeholder, in the steering committee during the stakeholder process was, submitting the petition for support of Wild and Scenic to the facilitators, and that was, part of the data that they used to come up with those 3 recommendations and make sure that kind of broader public voice was heard. So, we're doing everything from tabling to hosting events, to doing just kind of one-on-one meetings with, people who, either key activists or, folks who have concerns, and we're taking somebody out for a coffee can be a way to, help educate and, shift their thinking. A lot of that work is being done by our staff, but quite a bit of what we're trying to do is enable the, dozens, if not hundreds, of dedicated activists who want to see the Crystal protected. And so, doing things like letting folks go out and gather signatures on their own via petition, or setting partner groups up to table at, various community events. We last year we had a gathering on the banks of the Crystal in Redstone to, kind of engage those activists. We're planning on doing another one of those this fall. So I think that kind of gives a good overview of that type of work. The communications side of things is, obviously very related. It's, demonstrating that broad base of support through everything from paid advertisements. So we've been running these Voices of the Crystal ads in the local newspapers for a long time now, highlighting, individuals and why they support protection of the river. Working a lot with local media to make sure they're educated and have the background to write accurately on what Wild and Scenic is and on the process itself. We've generated a number of, I think, really good articles on the stakeholder process, on Wild and Scenic itself. And those types of things serve two purposes. One is just that general education for the community and making sure people are informed. But it also creates this really important track record for our elected officials so that they can see, kind of over many years that there's this, both a broad base of support for Wild and Scenic designation, but also a really robust, stakeholder and community-driven process, which we know is just really important, especially to our two senators who will, be critical in all this. And I should have mentioned, as part of that, legislative work, participation in the subcommittee, we're in communication with Senate staff and offices and keeping them informed on the process, so that we make sure that when the time comes and we've got a draft bill, that they're, feel like they can support it and have been brought along. So I think I'll probably stop there, but just end again by saying, really excited about this work. This is a key campaign for Wilderness Workshop. The partnership with the county is critical. To be honest, we wouldn't be where we are now in general without the leadership and the work and the funding, both for us as well as other parts of this from Pickens County. And just, looking forward to continuing to push the effort forward.
Question.
Yeah.
What's the ultimate date, the deadline? When's the goal? What's the goal for getting this done?
Yeah, the subcommittees, did not have a deadline by which they needed to be back. So I don't have a concrete answer for you. I think certainly, we'd love to see, I don't know if by the end of this year is probably too quick for a recommendation, but next year would be great.
So maybe a couple years out.
Yeah.
I think
I
that's
know
fair.
You put a lot of
Yeah.
work into it.
Yeah.
Francie, go ahead.
I still would like to figure out how to have a stakeholders group that doesn't amplify the voice of the opposers. Like, Darian's voice was amplified as though he weren't on the other side of 10,000 other people. So like, all the people up and down the Crystal River, most of them support Wild and Scenic, the town of Carbondale, the town of Lemon Springs, Pickens County Commissioners. There's all these people, and then you have this one voice that's over amplified. I would like to figure out how we can somehow mitigate that disproportion of the naysayers in these kind of groups.
It's a really good question, Francie. I think it's, for processes like this, it's important that people feel included, and that if you don't kind of take that more inclusionary stance, which does often, allow a minority of folks who have concerns, in the long run, you may not get where you want to go. I think we've seen, our elected officials, those kind of few voices can make a really big impact unless you take the time to ensure that they've been heard. So I don't think, I think it's smart for us to be including everybody as long as we continue to be talking about the ultimate goal. And the process is, we're in a subcommittee where we're talking about putting together a package to designate the Crystal as a Wild and Scenic river. Right. And so that's the frame that anybody who's participating in that is within. And and they can raise concerns, but ultimately it's pretty clear what the goal of that work is. And so, you know, I don't know if I'd characterize it as mitigating it, but I'd say, like, by setting the context of we're working towards legislation, you're being really clear that's where it's going. And, you know, there's not an expectation that everybody will have to support it. And maybe that's the best way to say it, is that it's not like there's a veto power for anybody who's participating in this. The goal is to hear people's concerns and to say, hey, can we address them? And there's some we can, and there'll probably be some we can't. And especially if it's more just ideological, like I don't like wild and scenic, or I don't like a federal designation, you know, you can't do anything about that when the goal is, you know, a federal designation.
And then one other thing, I mean, I'm not saying that he and others shouldn't be engaged. It's just that the power that they have when they're one of 20 instead of one of 10,000 is of concern to me. That's all.
Yeah.
But also, I wanted to say that one thing that I found to be very effective when I was doing the films and stuff is to remind people who are naysayers about having the feds come in that the reason they live there is because federal lands are all around them. They live in the midst of public lands. They chose to live there because how beautiful it is. So that is a very effective argument, so use it.
Absolutely.
I mean, I would just add, you know, it's not necessarily our political calculus to make either, you know, it's, I mean, it's like we're being responsive to like what our senators want to see in the process,
right.
you know,
Yeah, I know.
is
That's
can you
true.
accommodate, like how much can you accommodate to get to come together? And like, I think, you know, I find in this process where it's like, I don't want any condemnation. And there's 20 other people, oh, you're right. Yes, I don't want any condemnation. And then we can be like, great, we're not going to have any condemnation. You know, we can all agree on that, you know, or like, I don't want to get permits to do stuff in the river. And it's like, okay, like you already have to get permits to do stuff in the river, you know? So like that, we're not piling on to your requirements that already exist, you know? And so it's like, in some ways you can sort of create a list of things that are resolved, you know, and then we start to focus on the things that we haven't resolved or can't resolve. And those are the sticking points that I think will be the political calculus of like our senators to be like, okay, how important is this voice of one versus this voice of 10,000?
Sounds like another issue we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's been
I
mine.
would say.
But I know a lot of people feel your frustration.
I would say it is a little bit interesting. Maybe it's because of the size, the smallness of the community, but you know, the stakeholder process has taken off and is doing what it does. But it does seem that the actual community activists are kind of, you know, they've been kind of pushed aside, just, you know, not in any purposeful way, but because many of them are part of the stakeholder process. And one of the most active, loudest people have become part of the stakeholder process. But there is that missing space right now. It's kind of all stakeholder process and not a lot of community process right now. That's sort of grassroots. I mean, I guess you could probably, anyway. So I do feel like, you know, I'm not sure how the county or wilderness, you know, whoever wants to jump on board with that can figure out a way to reactivate the grassroots folks and, you know, get them re-engaged. Well, hopefully there'll be a moment when we can figure out when that's gonna make some sense.
I agree.
Right, well, thanks for coming, Will.
Yeah, well, good to see you as
again.
Yeah,
always.
absolutely.
Another,
appreciate it.
another worthy project.
Yep,
Bring them our way.
Thanks for coming up, Will.
for sure.
Take care.
Yep.
Okay, we're gonna keep moving. Thanks, Lisa. Good to see you. We're moving on to prep for our joint meeting with the city of Aspen. And this is
No, we're-
John, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, we are.
Is that where we are?
Doing regular.
So, don't get me, don't make me confuse me here, Patty.
I thought we were doing agendas, but
Only
this
positive
is part
feedback
of it.
allowed.
So,
Are we really going to have a joint meeting with the city of Aspen?
we are, but it's going to be a site visit for the bridges and the trail.
Great.
And it says Stein
Is it
Park
Pitkin
on
County?
Midland Avenue.
Yeah, so let's talk logistics. So right now, what the city council, as well as I think we had actually talked about this before also, are interested in doing a site visit just to look at the ABC to Brush Creek trail alignments and potential crossings, to really get in there and see the spaces that are being talked about. Logistically, I think we have some choices, Patty, so
No, let me just clarify. It gave the directions to Stein Park as Midland Avenue.
What are you looking at?
It was on something because I wrote it down, so I just want to clarify. We're going
to
to
Midland.
We're
Stein
not
Park
going
on
to
the
that
Roaring
Stein
Fork River.
Park.
Where is this?
yeah.
It's in future agendas.
Oh,
Yeah.
So it's future agendas. This is the joint
Thank you, Kelly.
meeting
I'm like
with the
so
city of
confused.
Aspen next week. It is scheduled to start at 4:00. The city will be providing transportation from City Hall to Stein Park at 4:00 for anyone that's in the city. We can also arrange to meet commissioners at Brush Creek around 4:00 and then provide transportation down to Stein Park.
Is this,
But
was
don't
this
walk
not the
down-
site visit scheduled for the 18th?
Yeah, it is.
It's a Monday. I have no idea what Henry Stein Park is.
It's down on the bottom of
This
Smith
is the
Hill Road
15th.
there. It's
It
at
is
the bottom.
15th.
It's a parking lot.
It's the put in before slaughterhouse.
Thank you.
Yes, the 18th is the joint.
That's the Chappie Park.
No, that's Jaffe Park. Stein Park is down the river.
Bottom of Cemetery Lane. is
So we have, so our
Stein
future
Park.
agenda says Monday, July 15th at 4.
Stein Park seems too far
I thought we
away,
were doing
unless
the
we're
site
going
visit
down the
to,
Rio Grande Trail.
on
Yeah.
Thursday the 18th.
It was on the 18th. It got moved to the 15th
Stein
because
Park's
the
at
city's
Slaughterhouse.
hosting the
Jaffe
joint
Park is
meeting.
at the bottom of Smith Hill, right?
So
That screws
Okay,
up my
so-
day immensely. Okay.
So I think you said we could meet at Brush Creek, and then what? Somebody would drive us down there?
yes, so Gary can meet you at Brush Creek if you're coming from down valley and don't want to come all the way in. If you're closer to City Hall, you can meet at City Hall at 4:00 and transportation will be provided. The tour would leave from Stein Park at 4:20. There's going to be some
Stein Park is the one at Slaughterhouse. Why are we leaving from there to go to Brush Creek Intercept Lot? Oh, because we're going to look at the cross.
Yeah, you're going to look
Downriver.
at the crossings, yeah. So you're actually,
Crossing.
so they're,
This is like,
Who's on first?
I don't understand why we're meeting way down on the Roaring Fork River to talk about,
well, because the Roaring Fork River is what's being crossed by the bridges, and it's being crossed potentially by Stein Park and then over by Brush Creek. And so the tour would go along the Rio Grande Trail in UTVs. Let me see if I can pull
We're
up
going
a
to take,
map.
UTV.
we're
I
going to
thought
take
you
all
were
terrain
talking about-
vehicles
We
down
banned
there.
those?
all
thought we
this time
banned
I
those.
thought you were talking about the entrance to Aspen.
This is
Isn't
ridiculous.
this our joint meeting
I
with the
think
city
you
of
should
Aspen?
all get an e-bike provided
so
by
confused.
the city.
Yeah,
to
an
ride
e-bike.
down the
We
Rio
signed
I
Grande
don't
Trail.
ride bicycles, but I'm not going to ride a ATV, an off-road or whatever, down the Rio Grande Trail
Why not?
because we don't allow them on the Rio Grande Trail.
Well, I'm so confused. I thought the whole point of this was the entrance to Aspen. I guess I was
No, it's
fixated
the
on
bike
talking
paths,
about that
bike
with Aspen
bridges.
City Council.
is.
That's
These
why
are
I
the
thought
bridges
that.
of Pitkin County, soon to be a major motion
So
picture.
why are we doing this with the city of Aspen? Because they want to have
They own the
input.
intercept lot
No, they don't.
property.
They manage it.
Can
course,
we all
CDOT
take
owns
a
it, they
step
manage
back?
it. Yes,
maybe?
please.
And because
Yes.
we're all having really different conversations. First question, do you want to do a joint meeting with the city of Aspen on Monday?
Yeah.
To do a tour of the Brush Creek to AABC trail and potential crossings?
Potential
result.
trail.
Correct. It's
No, there is a trail.
So
We're just
that
talking
is
how
on
to
my
get to
calendar.
it.
I'm planning on it. I just cleared the schedule to make sure it would fit.
Yeah, and so
As long as it's not a Midland Park Avenue, I'm good.
the city has a interest in supporting this student, has been a partner in the public process through their open space and trails program, along with our open space and trails program. Just seeing if I can pull up.
So it's not actually in the chambers, even though it says it is.
It is not in the chambers. No, it'll actually be a site visit.
So now we're gonna have all 5 of them supporting this at this meeting?
They're gonna be discussing it.
No,
They're doing a tour.
Yeah, but you're both doing, it'd be a joint meeting to look at the tour. I do think that there are a number of council members who are interested in the alignment. But I think everyone wanted to see
Okay.
more about it.
I get it
Yeah.
now. I'm sorry to be so
No,
cantankerous.
that's okay.
Fact-finding trip.
I just was so
I would like to
confused
know more
this
about the
meeting. I got it now.
logistics.
Well, we can let somebody figure
Are they
that
ever
out.
gonna talk to us about the entrance to Aspen? If we have to talk to them about these bridges, I want them to talk to us about the entrance to
That's a whole
Aspen.
nother discussion then.
So,
John, we're gonna meet at Stein Park, which is at Slaughterhouse Bridge.
you have a choice, yes. The tour will take off from Stein Park at 4:20. In terms of your options to get to Stein Park, you can get there yourself, or you can go to the City Hall, and there'll be a bus that will leave from City Hall at 4 o'clock to go there. Or if you're coming from down Valley, so some of you may be coming from Down Valley or Snowmass Village, it may be easier to go to Brush Creek. What we would need to know is how you would like to get there. So
Brush Creek.
if we're going to be picking up it sounds like from Brush Creek,
I'll be at City Hall.
and then
At City Hall.
2 from City Hall. And Steve, I think
You
you're
can pick me up at the
Fairbanks.
Anchorage Airport.
okay. It's a
I'll
really
fly down.
long trip for you. That's not an option we're providing.
Pick you up. I'll be there.
Okay, so we've got 2 from the Brush Creek at 4, 2 from City Hall at 4. We will convene then in Stein Park. The intent right now is to have UTVs. We'd have rangers posted on the trails. The other option is to walk or bike.
It's not that far to walk from Stein Park to where that bridge that comes down from the ABC crosses.
But you're doing the whole, yeah.
It's farther than you think. I think it's
Yeah.
a mile.
Yeah, well, I
It's a special event
It'll
on
be
the
fun.
trail. It'll be all
How often
right.
you get to drive a UTV?
I just think that flies in the face of everything we try not to do. But if I'm not at City Hall at 4 o'clock, I missed the train.
So then there would be a series of stops. There are potential bridge locations, 2 at the ABC. And then I think the distance, Patty, is going down to see the Brush Creek
Seriously.
crossing on the Rio Grande, which is why we wanted to be able to use the UTVs. If there are commissioners who would like to bike, I think it'll be easy to keep up on bike because we are gonna not be going quickly on the trail at that
Who's
time.
driving?
I don't know who's driving, or how qualified they are at this
Yeah.
point. But it'll be open space and trails. Staff and rangers will be along the trail to let folks know there are UTVs.
These will be electric
Potentially
UTVs,
going.
right?
They will unlikely be electric UTVs.
Do you
Unlikely
want me
they
to try to
won't
borrow
be.
an e-bike and you can ride on the
No,
back?
I don't. I'm just gonna wear a bag over my head so nobody knows that I'm traveling with a bunch of elected officials
Well,
on
it
a
is
trail that we
publicly
tell people
noticed.
they can't ride electric vehicles on.
Yeah. And so the the tour will end up around 5:45 at the Brush Creek Park and Ride to discuss that final potential bridge location so you can kind of visualize. I think they'll also be talking about, you're going to have a pretty detailed packet that talks about the different alignments that they've looked at and the background, the history,
That's a big packet.
a summary of the public process.
They're gonna give each of-
You've
also.
had that packet before.
You've had that back.
Can I
You've
take
seen
the
all this
bus
before,
back
yeah.
from the Intercept lot? I don't have to ride the
Can't.
How are we
UTV.
getting
There
there
are
from
buses
down
there.
on the Rio Grande? There isn't a bridge yet. How are we gonna get there on our little UTVs?
We're gonna have to go around on the summer. Yeah, there's a trail you can get around there on bikes and such.
Oh, really? But we need to put a bridge in?
Well, that is what you're gonna
Francie,
need to
That's
I
something we can
really-
discuss when we get there.
Can I just, this is something that like we haven't gotten to a working agreements about, but like I personally feel everybody's blood boil around this conversation, and I would love if we can just maybe have a
We'll park
pop-up rule about like this. I learned this in a session, a pop-up rule.
That was a
Where
joke,
or a pop-up
by the way.
agreement where we just suspend a little disbelief. We remain curious about the topic. We listen to the comments and presentations with an open mind.
Which we have
I'm-
done.
we
I'm-
logically
Don, that was our working
Greg, can I
agreements.
have
We
my
did.
hand up?
I'm sorry,
That
but
check.
I'm gonna make a joke if I want to, even
So-
if it's in
but
violation
it
of
is
that.
cantankerous is what I'm
It is
just
what?
cantankerous is the
I'm-
word you use.
I am cantankerous about this
And
topic.
I am
It's-
just asking we suspend some disbelief, or we decide it's not worth it, which would break my heart that we can't have a public process with an open mind.
Thank you, Kelly. Patty?
My concern is not about the issue. I'm not being cantankerous about the issue. It's the mode of transportation and how we're conducting this site visit that is bothersome to me.
And I'm not criticizing that, I'm just saying as we
She's just
move
criticizing
through
me.
this process, if we can
So if
have an
anybody,
open mind.
Thank you
I
all. I
have the
appreciate this.
floor.
Bring some
We'll get that sorted
zen.
out, Patty. You don't have to worry about that, and we'll figure it out for you somehow.
No, I-
Maybe we'll get a bicycle rickshaw, then it'll be human powered.
that's
and you
being
can sit back.
sarcastic. I am being serious. I have an issue with us trying to get on a site visit using a mode of transportation that we're telling the general public they can't use. It's not a maintenance issue. It's not like we have to haul gravel. That's of concern to me, and I don't think it looks good in the eyes. I don't mind looking at, I'm very familiar with the bridge sites and the proposed bridge sites, but I would like to hear the conversation of the rest of the group to hear what everybody thinks about the proposals. I'm just voicing my concern about the mode of transportation.
Okay, maybe you'll figure out a different way to get there. Steve?
So when I looked at this site about 10 years ago or whenever it was, we looked at it before, I rode my bicycle down on the Rio Grande Trail. That was the only practical way to get there to do it in any timely manner. It was well worth my while to go and stand at the site where the bridge terminus would be. That's when I made up my mind to vote no on it, actually. But I think it's really important that you support this and be there with the city council people. It's like a goodwill tour, and to get it'll be a chance to get their impression on it and their ideas. They might have other ideas that we haven't thought of. So I'm positive about this tour. I'm partially in support of one of the bridge locations, at least not the second one, but I have, you approach this with an open mind and view it as a learning experience, and that to me is important.
Thank you for
And
that.
you won't be there, so.
And I won't be
Okay,
there.
so we've
this
got a
time.
schedule, we know the time, we know the place to meet. I think we should move on to the next topic.
Which is?
Okay. I believe that's probably future agendas.
Yes,
Yep.
it is.
Give me just a second.
Let's go.
While he's
About
doing that,
that
can I
city
ask
tour.
a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
On Tuesday, the 16th, by the way, I'm gonna be here. I'm not staying for a week in Tampa, trust me.
Oh, jeez, sorry. I was trying to read the message. I apologize.
We have a discussion tentatively, I think, planned for exec session, a county attorney and county manager compensation from placement in range results. Why is that discussion, it's not really a personnel matter, why is that in exec?
You could choose to do it in public. It's a matter of, I think, contract. And so it's a personnel item. It's not one I actually have the details on, Patty.
Yeah, I would like clarification as to why that should be in
So we should
exec
talk
and
to
not a,
him.
it's about these placement and range results, which is a public document, I think.
Well, we've always done that in exec
Yeah.
before, like when we were talking about where people placed on the personnel range?
So I just want to make sure that this has
Yeah,
to be an
and
exact.
we've run it by the attorney's office.
And I
so-
want to bring up the fact that Francie has been asking for a couple of years now to have a discussion on the sheriff's salary. I know it's probably not in the placement in range of results, but just
Yeah.
wanted to mention that.
So that can only be adjusted just prior to the election. And so right now I can bring forward how that was set and how it's adjusted. The board has discretion to set that salary, but only when there's a transition in office.
Thank you, John.
Which we did have.
Yeah.
2 years
They
ago.
also get merit or
Yeah, they
whatever
get
cost of living
increases.
They do,
increases,
but
you
it's
know,
considerably
different.
less than the chief of police in Aspen, which disturbs me.
It is considerably more than any other sheriff in Colorado. That's the dilemma, I think, that past boards are.
I'll let John, and then I have one more, but I'll let John.
Thank you, Patty. for
What
bringing
else
that
you
up.
got, John?
So just on future agendas,
Can I just note on that, maybe, John, sorry, before you move on, that we do have some time allocated on the 23rd related to Pickens County Sheriff's Office staffing and organizational structure. I
that's-
don't know if that would be a time to just
yeah, we can
talk
probably
about
bring that up.
then.
So we'll leave that.
Bring that information back at
Yeah.
that time.
Thank you, sorry.
So CORE 30-year celebration on August 14th. I think you probably saw a invitation, but if not, they're having on August 14th from 4 to 6. Backyard Buttermilk. Is it Buttermilk Lodge? Is that
Whatever the
what
new
Bumps
place
used
is
to be?
called, Bumps,
Yeah,
former
It's not called
Bumps.
bumps anymore?
No, it's not, but it's got something mountain, it's some big fancy name.
So yeah, it's a big bash there celebrating Bill Sterling.
It is a regular meeting date. Probably should let Charlotte know if you do plan to attend, just in case we get more than 3 of you, so that we.
Well, then if we get more than 3 of us, we won't have a quorum to hold our regular meeting
It is on a regular meeting day.
But it's after
4
our
to
meeting.
6.
at 4, but we gonna be done by 4 that day?
Well, we'll just have to be.
I'm gonna be out of town then,
Sorry.
so it'll be even tougher.
Also wanted to note for the board that construction on the door that's going to connect these rooms for elections is going to start after our meeting on July 16th. So it'll be done in the evening. We're anticipating being done by the following Tuesday meeting.
Did we get the door?
My understanding is we've got the door.
Get the door.
So, yeah.
Now we just need the chop saw.
Yeah.
Or the sawzall.
Remind me again why we're doing that. I forget what, it's something about voting day, but what does that do for the voting process?
So there are space requirements, and those have changed over time. Kelly, you may even have a better sense of this, but when we designed the building in 2018, we ensured that the Roaring Fork Room met those minimum space requirements at the time and could be used for early voting and voting day. Some of as elections laws change with some frequency or requirements. As they've had changes, that footprint doesn't work anymore. We had originally designed this building with the idea that we were going to have a big sliding door so we could open it up for elections anyway. We thought we weren't going to need it. We did design this with a header so it'd be easy to cut through if we ever did need to do that.
Which we now do.
And now we do, yeah.
So this would be part of the voting room,
Yes, on election.
just one day, not.
Correct. Yeah.
Well,
so
but it
should-
takes some time to set up and take down.
No, but I mean not early voting, just on election day. Yeah. Okay.
It should not interfere, because typically you all shift your
Right.
meeting days to accommodate those in-person election days, and there'd be set up and take down, as Patty's saying, but it shouldn't interfere with your meetings.
We used to get thrown out of our regular meeting room for about a month during elections for all of that security stuff.
Is it a solid door, or is it a glass door, is it a?
I know it is not going to be a glass door.
Is it etched,
And we're
scenic?
doing as solid, we're trying to get it as soundproof as we can, but anytime you put an opening in a wall, you're gonna have more sound seepage between the two, yeah.
So is this, how wide is the door gonna be, John? Because I know part of our reasoning was that was overflow space for this meeting room where the public could be in there, and they're sort of part of this room. It would be easy for them to come in and do a public comments or whatever.
Yeah, it's not gonna be like the sliding door that we had originally, because that was a 6-figure, so it's gonna be more like a double set of
A double
doors like
door
we
like
have in
that.
the back, yep.
So when those are open, if there are public members in there, they're a little bit more part of this room and part of the meeting rather than just looking on a TV screen.
Yeah, potentially. Not as much as if we had that sliding door, but
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
again, was pretty exorbitant,
So
yeah.
real quick, I just saw Elk Mountain Expeditions drive by with their rafts. That's how we should do the site visit for Brush Creek.
Oh,
be
by
You
raft.
Great.
should raft from
That's a
Stein
great
Park
idea.
to Jaffe Park. Solve the problem.
Love that. I'll row.
No, Kelly, that was a pop-up idea.
You're
I
being
love that idea.
cantankerous.
Don't
No, I'm
capsize,
being absolutely serious. I'd love to raft that part of the
don't
river.
capsize in
Slaughterhouse,
slaughterhouse.
no. Yeah.
Hang on.
Okay, so, moving right along.
Yeah, and then Greg, I don't know, you'd had some discussions about a potential August meeting that was requested of you. I
August, yeah,
don't
we
know
had a
if you
request
wanted
on
to chat
August
about that now, or
6th.
if you wanted to.
Well, John Bennett and George Newman would like to come before us on the 6th of August with a presentation about, really, honestly, it's probably a public, the best way to frame it would be, it's a public reminder of everything we've done through the visioning committee for the airport since all that process happened, about the four main points.
I think giving them time would be perfect. They want to go back to the common ground recommendation, I believe.
Right, and so it's really a presentation on those original common ground by some of the people who were there.
And
I
our
would
resolution.
support bringing them in for that. So, August 6th.
So, part of the original common ground recommendation was moving the taxiway to the east, replacing the air traffic control tower at our expense, as it turned out,
I think that,
which are things that have changed from the original recommendation. So I would hope that they're not
They're not.
pushing
No,
for
they're
the
not.
They're not.
stuff that has been changed.
They are completely on board with
But
the
the
current
original
ALP.
concept of the
Included that.
four main points.
I think they're really focused on what came out of the committees.
Four main
The
things.
4 main points that the committee agreed upon, and how we need to bring that back to community understanding and knowledge.
They talked to Patty and me quite a bit about it last week, so
Cleaner,
it's
quieter.
they are definitely in support
And thank you
of the
for
proposed
giving them
ALP
time,
right
Greg.
now.
So, yeah, and that's, I think, what we're
do
checking,
that.
do we want to schedule that
6th.
time on the?
Yep, thank you.
I
It's
have,
mostly for the public that they're coming and
I
saying
have
that.
one thing, and I'm not sure how, if this is an agenda item, or executive session item, or what. I would like to talk to the county attorney's office, see which forum is best to have a discussion about TDRs. Not to change them, but what we might be able to do in this interim period of time between now and the time we do the full scope of the Citizens Growth Committee. So if we could follow, is that okay? I
Yeah, no, I would certainly,
So, I will be attending virtually I'll be flying back on August 15th, so it's a whole month of meetings I'll be attending virtually. Some of those I will be in McCarthy, where it was a little bit more sketchy internet connection, and I'll probably have my video turned off when I'm there, just so the audio part will come through better, but bear with me while I'm gone. I'll do my best to have the best connection I
You mean
can.
bear as in brown bear with you?
As in
grizzly
brown
bear,
bear.
grizzly bear with you. Polar bear, I'm gonna be gone the 10th to the 18th of August.
So we'll have just the 3 of us?
That'd be the three
And
of
I'm
you.
gonna be
So
gone
you're
the
gonna be
10th
gone
to
for the Club
17th.
20 meeting at NUCLA.
Mhm.
Okay, so will you connect me up so I can get there, figure that out, how to go?
Where is it? In Nucla?
Nuclear.
Careful.
The second, and that's the one that I hate to miss because it's the energy, the public lands,
Yeah.
agriculture.
So I'll definitely go to that, but if you would send me, I don't know what you have, an invitation
zoom
or
into that?
registration
There's,
or something.
They've been sending out things that
I
are,
saw something that it was coming up, but I didn't see a registration type of thing. Let me see if I
and
can find
what you would do is just talk to Charlotte and she can get you registered and get the motel reservation, whatever you need, the car, all that stuff.
I see things that say summer policy meetings start next week, but that's not it, right?
Well, yes, first ones are next week.
Okay.
And then the second set of them are in Nucla. The ones next,
But you'll go to the ones in Edwards or not?
it's actually this week
He'll
is
be
in
gone.
Edwards.
Oh, it's the 11th, yeah.
And then I
That's-
think in 2 weeks' time is the one in Nucla?
Yeah, so you're going to Edwards?
No, I'm not gonna
Oh,
be
you're
able
not.
to. No.
He's filling in for me as best
I'm
possible
gonna be
for
at
COG.
Northwest COG online. I'm not going in person, Zooming.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Okay,
the
anything else
instant
on
of
futures?
Melissa.
Or are we
Yeah,
back
I
to
was,
He's gonna be
open
there.
discussion?
hang on one sec, let me just check out August again. Okay. All right, it's not till the end of August. We don't need to talk about that now.
Yeah, that's all I had for,
Great, thank you. All right, board open discussion. Any further open discussion on anything, any
Well,
topic?
This Friday is
Ashley's here.
CCI legislative proposal deadline, which maybe you're gonna address that.
no.
Or
So,
Levi
or
was.
somebody. I don't know if
So
we
we have
had
a number of open discussion items
Yeah.
for you. If we can take CCI first, Ashley's here to talk about upcoming meeting with potential funders on affordable housing projects. Where do you want to start?
Let's start with Levi. He got here
Okay.
first.
Thank you, Kelly, for,
I haven't done much, so no need to.
you
thank me.
called him and told me how to go. I wasn't telling him he had to come to a meeting.
He came, he said he was already planning to come,
Oh.
so,
I
again,
was
I've
already
done nothing
planning.
here.
So I guess I just would be curious if we have any alignment with CAST and CC4CA, and if we want to bring any of those things forward to CCI for legislative priorities in the session.
So just take a step back. It's that time of year again where CCI asks for legislative priorities. In the past, of course, we've submitted on, the real estate transfer tax and fee. We could do that again.
I
It's
do
already
want to do
written.
it. I wasn't gonna, but I think we
Definitely
do.
think we should do it. And keep doing it. Wear them down.
But if there are other legislative items, they are due July 12th, and so staff would be in a position of drafting quickly, and then we can always amend. And so if there are other issues that have come up, I have one kind of outside the box idea for you all, but
I can't
I'll
wait
let
to
you
hear
know.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
In terms of
Steve?
the real estate transfer tax, as long as Governor Polis is in office, it's a futile effort because he promised last year that he would just veto it. So then the sponsors that we had just gave up on it right from the get-go.
But you never know what he might decide tomorrow, so I think we should keep it in there. It'd be easy to write.
It's already written. Yeah, and Paul Weiser is still on board, even though he's left Mountain Village, so he's still spearheading that. And we could try to get a supermajority and go around a veto authority of the governor. Early reports are kind of that there are enough legislators loyal to the governor that we might not get there.
You never know what might
So,
happen. But
you
I don't
never
want
know.
it to be forgotten and then have to be brought back and remind. I'd rather just keep it on everybody's radar.
So the real estate transfer fees or taxes is on the policy statement of CAST that they just released here last week. And it's also kind of has been in the discussion of revenue generation through CCAT. And I guess everybody's still sort of in the brainstorming process of where we want to put our bullets.
I mean, I would say, so there's a working group that is analyzing different opportunities to expand county revenue authorities. That RET is one of them on the list. There's a bunch of others. So if nothing else, it can act as a placeholder to then fill in with a different revenue authority approach. There's been some strategizing on seeing if we can get one of the more conservative counties to promote a revenue option. And I know other commissioners are doing that outreach, but I don't, the unanswered question so what we've learned in all this is that any ballot measure to change Tabor has to happen in an even year. So I don't know if the 2025 legislature can refer a measure to the 2026 ballot. We can also always submit it and then
Carry it
pull
over.
it, or submit it and not have them support it, or submit it and
See what happens.
see what happens. But there's a broader conversation around
Well,
different authorities.
So if we submit it, we could fold it into the broader conversation, so that's what I'd like to see.
So the RET, we resubmit the RET, but with the idea we may fold it into a broader revenue
generator.
conversation.
Okay, I'm sorry, Greg, but I gotta hear what Peacock's out of the box.
Well, it's only out of the box. I haven't talked to you all much about it, but we've been exploring at the staff level options for sustainable aviation fuel. It's being shipped in. We've been looking at, what are options for local production, whether that be a regional project or more of a localized technology. We're looking at all of them right now. One of the things that has become apparent as we've been talking to different companies that are playing in this field, and there's a lot of money out there right now, so there's a lot of capital coming into SAF. But other states have been more aggressive in creating incentives for sustainable aviation fuel. Illinois probably being the most aggressive right now, where they're providing a $1.50 a gallon incentive at the state level for SAF. And so what that's doing is a lot of this capital that's out there for these types of projects and infrastructure projects, they're kind of starting to steer towards states that have created these types of incentives. Maybe a real reach for CCI, but I do wonder if it's worth, since we have an interest, and I think a lot of our airports on the Western Slope have an interest in a more stable local source of sustainable aviation fuel, if we shouldn't start the conversation at the state level about state level incentives for that, especially since we host one of the busiest airports in the world.
Do we,
World.
do we have an idea of
Yeah, the
what
state
states,
does. Yeah.
do we have any proximate states to Colorado that are doing it?
Not that I'm aware of. It doesn't mean
Illinois
they're not. I
still
haven't fully
900
researched it.
miles away,
Yeah.
It
right.
might come up at the conference this weekend.
So we've got them
Good.
in Los Angeles, and we'll have one in Illinois. That's 1,000 miles either way, right? Pretty much.
There's some smaller SAF. It's more the incentives, though. Like, that's where capital is going to get drawn
How is
to.
the incentive paid for?
That I need to do more research on too. This looks, in Illinois' case, like a state appropriation, but there are probably different models out there, and that's the rub. Like, we haven't done a lot of research, Kelly, on different models and such, and my
Start the
guess is it would
conversation.
take a couple of years to get traction on something like this anyway. So is it worth starting to introduce the concept
What are
of,
they making their SAF out of in Illinois?
well, there's all kinds of feedstocks. Most of what we're seeing right now, Francie, is going to be agricultural, but everyone's moving towards municipal waste conversion.
Yeah.
And
I told Rich it would be really hard for me to support SAF that's made out of agricultural products.
Right.
It just seems so wrong to me.
Well, and
To drive up food prices for private jet fuel.
For using water and fuel to grow the crops and
Yeah.
turn them into aviation fuel? Like,
Yeah, and I think that's something that we're looking at too, like if it's agricultural byproduct, that's
it's not the
probably
corn
different
cob, it's the
than
corn
growing
stalk.
corn or sugar cane for the purpose of
Yeah.
producing ethanol and converting it to SAF.
John, has RMI done any work? I was just wondering, that sounds like something they'd have on file and
Well,
a recent report.
Michael Port has actually put us in touch with a resource, and we're touching base with RMI to see if they have some, can help us with that.
Great, great.
So it may be too early. Like I said, we'd have a lot of research to do, but it may be something to start introducing to the dialogue, since I think we all have an interest in that.
I'll see if I can't find anything more out from other counties.
I'd support
weekend.
putting that on the CCI hopper,
Okay.
because we know they're talking about it in Denver as well.
And it's part of this use of funds generated on the airport to be able to be used off airport property. So that sustainable fuels is one of the key things, other than, along with, I should say, renewable energies as opportunities.
Levi, were you gonna go through the cast list of,
There are only a couple more on their list to local vacancy taxes and short-term rental taxes. They were supporting initiatives that would allow local governments to approach their voters for jurisdiction-specific taxation on those industries or those issues. So I don't exactly know what their strategy is surrounding both of those things, or why they need state legislation
Yeah, so
to
if you,
allow us to do that, but
how
that's.
does it work on a vacancy? So if my house is vacant, I get taxed? My house is full, I get taxed?
Maybe a different rate if it's a secondary, not your primary
Yeah,
residence.
interesting.
I would say the Revenue Authorities group is sort of diving into the details of all these and comparing like their generation opportunities, because like some things that might work well for a resort community might not work so well for other parts of the
Right.
state. And I've asked Anne to weigh in on some of that brainstorming.
Well, so if that's already moving forward, does that take up one of our slots that we get to introduce through CCI? You only get so many, right? I don't think you can do unlimited a number.
I don't remember.
Something that has come up is, I don't know if it's specifically in terms of legislation, but for us to be prepared to protect local licensing authority in terms of STRs. I think
Yeah.
there's a concern that some legislation will be introduced that strips local jurisdictions of our licensing authority. We saw just a taste of it last session with
Yep.
213, with the backcountry huts issue. So I don't know if there's something proactive we can do in terms of defining huts, or, I don't know, establishing on a state level the local authority to issue those licenses, or if there's something to be done there. But I think
Huts versus backcountry short-term rentals? Or
Right.
same one and the same, or?
Well, I think that's just the issue, is that that Senate bill last session threatened to undermine our ability to make that distinction and to license basically anything that
Could we
wasn't tied to a
introduce
public
it?
utility.
You can't tell us we can't do that,
Right.
legislation.
I mean, I would like to have some discussion around and potentially inviting, I think, soon-to-be Senator Amabile up here for a site visit to
Okay.
tour
Is that your friend,
that
Greg?
yeah, it
country.
is. We
Yeah.
talked about that.
Yeah, she
Did I
won
send
her
her?
primary and I think is expected to win the election. That I think it would be really great if we could get her up here to tour our like the areas that we're concerned about and understand what huts look like up here.
right,
Um,
On an ATV?
I don't think you need ATVs to go past a mountain. You can ask your son how he would recommend perhaps to take us.
But should go up Midnight Mine Road or Little
Yeah.
Amy Road.
I was
Yeah.
just talking about whenever it's the middle of winter. or something.
Yeah, in the middle of the winter.
So if there's
Snowmobile up there.
energy on the board, I'd look to John to see if we can get some staff resources to try to make that happen. Pending her willingness and schedule, if Greg is
Sure.
willing to make that
I'm
invitation.
happy to, as long as we know when.
I think it would maybe be flexible up to her.
Let her decide.
Yeah.
I think Summit, Uray, and geez, maybe Eagle County have also mentioned Rep. Amabule's name to reach out
Yeah.
for some outreach on this. So could start to get a good voice.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Is that okay, John?
Okay, I'll send her a. We'll send her
I'll
a-
also just let y'all know I was Cora'd on communications related to that bill, and so I've had to submit my emails and things to Rye.
Jeez, really?
Gunnison is getting sued, and I was Cora'd for my communications between Liz Smith, who sits on the CCAC governing board with me, about this bill specifically.
So, can I just delete my phone?
I think Rye's going to give us some advice and
Yeah, we need some legal
incoming
counsel on that.
Yeah.
months. But
Liz
Anyway.
fully expects that legislation to come back
Yeah.
more aggressively this session than it even
Yes, we
as
should be
last year.
keeping an eye on that for sure.
Requiring us to allow STRs?
Yep.
Yeah.
And the Illinois, going back to the SAF, was in the form of a tax credit, actually, use tax credit, which may be.
So
Like, do
they
they have,
can't
they have
they-
backcountry short-term rentals
It's
in
only
Illinois?
written stuff, right?
Sorry, I was going back
And
to the
tax
other-
credits help our Tabor math, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The state's Tabor math.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
correct.
So you had to submit text and emails or just text?
I didn't, well, yes, I had text and emails. Yeah.
Shoot, I have my
There
mother's
wasn't a lot.
spaghetti recipe on mine. I better.
You better share it.
I better
Yeah.
share.
And
It's
I'm on
really
emails
good.
with
She
her
made
about
great
other things,
spaghetti.
but it was like with the dates involved, so I just sent all of them to Rye.
What a pain.
Aside from that, I haven't heard much out of CC4CA in terms of their legislative initiatives for the coming session. I think we're still kind of figuring out how to navigate the grand bargain and what that means, if we can further regulate ozone or how that's exactly going to shape out. So nothing specific from them yet.
Here's the materials for the site visit I'm taking on a, I want to write a
She's
motor
looking
cycle.
for nearby towns' electric ATVs.
But I can't open
Well,
it 'cause
we
it's
did
a
get
group of-
one, we're already working on it. We've got one electric shuttle now, the Aspen Historic Society.
I have a friend that has mules available for
We're
rental.
not very demanding.
Could be donkeys. I think they're donkeys.
I like the rafting idea. But we could also get bicycle rickshaws. They do have them here.
You,
Patty could ride a bicycle rickshaw.
I offered to like get one of the bigger wagon e-bikes.
did you see the thing
biker.
about
Yeah.
Durango,
Do you-
Levi?
In the back.
About 1 night or 2 nights in Durango? Did you see that?
I figured one. Leave it Dawn.
So just leave it on. I'm
Yeah.
fine with that.
Dawn, like in the
Then
morning.
we do have a few more open discussion items.
let's
if,
keep going,
we're ready
please.
to-
Others.
So
Sorry, we kind
Ashley, if
of
you,
got lulled away. Now it's almost 3 o'clock, so
you
let's.
don't mind coming up
this-
to talk about.
Sorry,
that.
Ashley, you were sitting there patiently.
We're
You should-
lollygagging.
You should be more
It's okay.
impatient.
Oh, no, that's not recommended with the
Yeah.
board.
I agree with her.
Yeah, I do too.
She's on the clock anyhow, so.
I wanted to bring to y'all's attention two separate things that are happening on Friday. Now I've forgotten the date. August 16th, I believe. Great, thank you. Friday, August 16th, they're both related to housing, and there's opportunities for board members to attend both. So I wanted to get them ahead of you now before your calendars fill up. So the first one is the morning of that Friday, August 16th. Folks from CHAFA, the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority, are conducting their annual summer tour. They pick a couple different regions and come tour the region. So they're going to be touring Aspen to Parachute. So on the morning of the 16th, they're going to meet in Aspen, do like a quick 30, 45 minute kind of overall presentation of the housing situation in the valley. And then they're going to spend the rest of the day touring housing sites. So they'll start at the lumber yard, they'll go up to Snowmass and see the draw site. And then they would like to come to the Phillips Mobile Home Park.
Okay,
So-
potential housing sites.
Yeah, potential housing sites. So that'll be around 11 o'clock on Friday the 16th. I'm suspecting like a 30-minute tour of Phillips. It'll be a combination of leadership from CHAFA, some staff members, and then they like to bring along, they said, like a mix of people who just
support their office. So they said IT folks, admin folks, just to try and get anybody who works for CHAFA aware of what's happening across the state. So I think it'll be about 20 folks from CHAFA who would like to see Phillips. So that's the first opportunity around 11 on that Friday morning, the 16th. Obviously, staff can lead the tour, but if one or two of you would like to come and
I'd like to
hang
be there,
out.
but I'll be away. At least I think I'll be away.
So that before you decide on that one, that afternoon, there is another related but unrelated opportunity around housing. So if you all remember the recovery roadmap that we received a grant from DOLA to be a roadmap region back in 21, OEDIT, I'm not going to go with their acronym, OEDIT, is getting together a bunch of roadmap related agencies. So DOLA, some people from OEDIT, some people from different divisions within state government. They've even talked about maybe bringing a state representative. They'd like to invite our regional rep, kind of a large contingent of anyone who was involved in the roadmap process. They are going to come and they would like to do they said an 1.5 to 2 hour kind of presentation style with folks across the region who represent housing, talking about what we did with the roadmap, what our housing challenges are, where we really could use funding and support. And so they'd like to do a pretty substantial, they would like to present kind of back to us, and then we'll follow that up with a happy hour, more of like a mingle, meet and greet, free-flowing conversation.
What time?
So that's, the presentation right now is scheduled 2 to 4 with a happy hour at 4 to 5 on Friday, August 16th. Since the roadmap funding went directly to setting up the West Mountain Regional Housing Coalition, we've asked April and the coalition to take the lead on scheduling that time with OEDIT, but they've of course reached out to Pickens County as one of the lead agencies on the roadmap grant and would love our participation in both the presentation as well as the happy hour. I will be there representing staff. I'm assuming we'll have some other folks from the manager's office, but that's another opportunity for board members to come. And if you just want to come for the happy hour and meet folks, that's fine. Or you could come and the presentation is going to be high level. We want to make sure we get across some of the unique challenges that we've been putting into some of our legislative efforts and things like that. So talking about AMI and income levels and the challenge of building here because construction is so high, giving some feedback on state funding opportunities and how we'd like to see some of those changed to better respond to our needs up here. So Friday, August 16th, there's an opportunity to tour Phillips with CHAFA at around 11 a.m. And then there's an opportunity to be part of a bigger conversation with roadmap representatives from 2 to 5 in the afternoon.
This is August 16th.
August 16th, the Friday.
Where's the 2 to 5 time? Where's the location?
TBD Mid-Valley is the thought there.
I'd like to attend both. I'm juggling figuring out what my attendance at the CCAT retreat is, which is the same days. So
Yeah, I might be, I don't know what I'm doing in August, let alone August
Me either.
16th, but I put it on the calendar and I'll just keep
Okay.
you posted.
I put it on my calendar, but it's so far out.
All right.
Yeah, I might be interested in the afternoon one especially.
Okay. Well, we will check back in as we get closer, but I did just want to get that on y'all's radar.
If I'm here, I'd be interested in both.
Okay. Is that all we need, John?
Yeah. And then last thing, I think Sam Rose had sent all of you an email about a Moose Crossing sign. I think a couple of you responded. Just wanted to see if it's not our road, so it'd be a request to CDOT. It's not necessarily a request coming from City Council. I think it's from a single council member, but I know a couple of you had responded already, so just wanted to get direction. Should we be contacting CDOT to explore these Moose Crossing signs, or what is?
I think we refer Sam to CDOT and have him bring us to CDOT's attention.
I would say CDOT, but also I think it'd be worth, hopefully we referred him to the safe passages people and the biodiversity, watershed biodiversity, cardamom, because they've been mapping and charting, and, if a moose gets hit, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the place
It's
to
the
put
place
the
to put the.
sign or the crossing, and so I think we need to have some data behind it.
Well, this guy it was originally written, the letter was written to Sam, and did you get it? Me,
I
and
got
a
it.
few, some of us got it, but not everybody, I don't think, on the council. Not everybody on council got it. We're not sure why Sam got it.
No,
Anyway, this guy has been watching these moose, and he has kept records of where he's seen the moose up there.
I didn't get
Yeah.
that letter, I just
So,
got Sam's
yeah,
letter.
so that ought
It's a
to
little
be
bit
shared.
more than just the one moose getting hit, but.
Right, I think there's more, and it might be anecdotal evidence, but it'd be worth investigating.
Right, 'cause Sam
Yeah.
wanted signs, not a sign, he wanted moose crossing signs up and down.
Yeah, and
Horseback.
typically there's a process to look at and evaluate those, but
And I don't know if
We-
he's talked to any of his fellow council members.
I don't know. Yeah.
I think it'd be worth exploring so we understand it, because if we put a sign up everywhere an animal was hit or we saw them, we have billboards all
A
over.
lot of signs, yeah.
But I'm sympathetic. So do we know, Public Works wouldn't have anything to say about it, I
I
suppose.
sent it on to Brian.
Yeah, so we just asked Brian to make the inquiry through CDOT as far as what the process is, and if the board desires, then we can follow up on that. And Greg, I would anticipate, I haven't done a wildlife crossing sign process with CDOT, so, but my sense is there would have to be some science behind
Right.
putting them up, yeah.
The city needs to put one on the Mill Street Bridge where I almost hit
I
the
would
moose.
support asking Shauna Lou to come up and visit us, and we could take her on a tour of that location and some others.
Shauna Lee?
What's her name? Shoshana Lou?
She's the
CDOT.
CDOT.
CDOT director.
Director.
So that's been a couple times that's come up. I'm not sure if that's direction or,
Well, she does apparently come up here, but Ashley's gone. But apparently she does come up here and has a presence here.
So
a
now we're
family
talking
house.
about bringing her up here with
I
or
want to
without
invite
a
her to come
moose.
up and take a tour to talk about wildlife crossings
So
and cleaning out shale bluffs.
if I could weigh in on the moose crossing, in Alaska, they clear cut alongside the roads for hundreds of miles, about 30 or 40 feet back from the edge of the road, and that's the only way to reduce the
You can see
moose
it.
That's
car
interesting.
accidents, because the moose will be in the woods and they'll come right out on the road,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody's going 60 miles an hour and they hit the moose. They need to be able to see the moose farther away, and the only way they can do that is by clear cutting the sides of the road.
There's
I
a
think
solution.
people
I
would
don't think-
love that.
I don't think we would want that as a solution here.
And the speed limit there is 25 miles an hour, so maybe people just want the speed limit again.
Yeah.
Imagine hitting a moose, that would just be a terrible
Well,
experience.
yeah, I think every time I see one on the highway, which I do every week, I think that the average cost is $73,000 per collision.
Did
for
you
all
see
the
the elk
impact.
See a
this morning?
moose on the highway every week?
No, a dead animal,
Oh,
a deer, an
I was
elk.
gonna say a
Did
moose?
you see the elk this morning near the airport?
I did, yeah. But I think, wow, $73,000 per animal, that's kind of expensive when you tally
Well,
it all
depends on
up.
what kind of car you're driving. It wouldn't be $73,000.
That's the
in my
average
car.
cost
Oh,
among
average.
all the wrecks that we have, which includes fatalities and
average
emergency
Aspen car.
response and, the entire cost.
That's the whole.
Okay,
Okay.
I'd
We're in
like to
exec-
give us a break before we go right into our back into
Continue
our
our
exec.
exec.
Are we done, John?
I'm done. I don't know if the
Thank
board
you
has
for all
anything.
that. I think.
You're done?
I'm
You're
done.
done.
Okay,
You guys are impossible
we're
today. I
still
can't wait
in
to get out of
We
executive
need to
session.
get Melissa down here to record.
Right.
We just tell her she's doing it remotely, isn't she? Or,
I don't know, we
She's
just need to
calling
make
you.
sure it's
I'll text
recorded.
Yep.
I think she said she's gonna
She
hang
actually
up
sent me
after
an
she hooks
email.
us up, so
She
it must
sent
be
me an email.
remote.
She's gonna hang up.
Yes, I thought that's what she said.
So we need a little transition to have grassroots shut down and.
Right.
Are you guys adjourning?
We are, no, we're going into exec, we're going back into exec, so we're just done with the work
So
session.
you're done.
So grassroots, we can shut you down, and Michaela will get us set up. you.